Yeah, it's been about 18 days since the last time I did one of these videos. Whoops. 18 days. So I'm a little out of the gist of them. I forget what I was doing in the previous two. I think the first one I can't even remember. The second one I was talking about violence. I do wonder why we even bother sometimes. What is it that I'm hanging on for? What's the hope? The first Trump term was bad. I had hope that it was a low point. But now, and maybe this is just, maybe I should have felt this way earlier too. I just didn't have the perspective. I can't see America being something good, and I can't see the world at all being something good. Even if America was erased off the earth, I mean, there are so many nations that are just declining into fascism. The internet as a whole is becoming a tool for fascism. And I really can't see an end of the United States of America's terror. I really can't see an end of the fascism. I can see an end of Trump. I could even see a downfall of MAGA. But I can't believe that America is just going to stop the fascists. The fascists didn't, or the racists didn't lose after the Civil War. Yeah, they're fascists too. They were fascists. Only they didn't have to invoke fascism in the typical sense because they had already branded their workforce as non-human. The only reason that the pro-slavery sides, the Confederates, were not fascist is because the majority of their people were not referred to as equals, including by the Union. That's 20 extra gauge jumps for me to do. Because they're taking people that were already branded non-human and refusing to give them humanity. Which, frankly, the North didn't give them humanity either until the Civil Rights Act. You can't have second-class citizens. They're not equal. They're not your people if you're treating them as half people. And that's what black people were in the United States of America. So yeah, in the modern era, the modern world, where black people in the USA have human rights and we're just watching a decline, this seems much more fascist than when you hear about the Civil War and how they were treating black people, because every time they write about the treatment of black people in the Civil War, it's as captives. You know, they write about it like these are people who are prisoners and being abused. Whereas right now we're seeing people who live lives having those lives taken away from them. The black people in the Civil War, and they were Americans, the black Americans in the Civil War had never had the chance to have a life that was taken away from them. They were always treated as tools, always treated as animals. And so it seems more fascist. It plays to our heartstrings more when we see people getting shot in the street. But when we hear about, and maybe the medium has a part in it too, when we hear about people who were being terrorized by the forces of the Civil War was to protect the slave owners, the rapists, the traffickers. Well, in those cases, it feels like it's twofold. One end, it feels like those actions are being presented as happening as part of a system that has always existed. And I think that's actually both aspects. Is that one, it was the norm, and two, the world had never known something before. Well, no, they did. They did. And you know, this is probably because when I was studying the Civil War, I was coming from a place of white privilege. I'm a white person, I'll say it. I'll be honest about that, I'll put that forward. I lack the perspective of people of color. And a lot of the things that I'm feeling now, and that I blocked out for years in the past, were things that people of color had never forgotten, had never let go. And maybe this is why the general internet spaces that are meant to be seen as casual and frankly a little ooh cutesy are primarily occupied by white people. Because white people are feeling the pain now, but black people were feeling the pain. I mean, they never got a resolution, ever, for any of the problems there. Liberals got to feel good after the first Trump, you know, the insurrection attempt failed. Kind of failed, he stepped down. I don't know what to make of it exactly, but, you know, liberals got to feel good. They got to say we're making progress, even when they lost the House again in 2023. They got to say we're making steps forward, and this is all a part of progress, and change isn't a straight line, and gets thrown around all these little bits here. Because if your nightmare was Trump, you know, if that was the only thing you were afraid of, is having a rapist in office, then yeah, that ended. But it never ended for black people that wanted to see justice, who wanted to see an end to the killing. And it never ended for the poor people who are struggling every single year. And that's maybe why someone voted for Trump. I can't forgive them, but I can understand that. Although, I can't forgive them. Why? Because I'm angry that they voted for a president that made it a little worse. I mean, it's not like Kamala Harris would have fixed much, but she would have, to me, she would have at least prevented the aspect of, you know, the pain point of having Republicans blatantly, unapologetically destroying rights. But I mean, I was barely hanging on through 2023, 2024. I guess Donald Trump getting reelected just destroyed my hope. That's what it is. I lost my hope. I had hope that change could happen slowly after Donald Trump, because I hadn't known the world before George W. Bush. I hadn't known America before. I hadn't really been paying attention to America under Obama either. I just knew Trump, and I knew the insurrection, and from that point, from, you know, COVID and the insurrection and like the Muslim travel ban, it was looking up slowly. Horrible, but upward. And then this is a downward trajectory that I don't know what to do. Like, it is. Yeah, that's it. There's no denying it. It's here. God, I wish it wasn't. And again, I don't think Kamala Harris is going to do much better. Maybe she would have ushered the Iranian-Israeli war to an end, but like, well, I don't think maybe she wouldn't have supported the Iranian-Israeli war. Maybe she would have ushered the atrocities in Palestine to an end. Would have had a couple speeches where she's like, Bibi, you must stop this. And then, you know, things go back to where they were in 2022, which wasn't good for Palestine. As far as domestic stuff is concerned, I mean, obviously she wouldn't be putting her face on banners. ICE probably wouldn't be in your streets. They wouldn't be as blatantly violent. But they probably would actually be doing attacks on people. They probably would. Not in the street, but raiding homes. There wouldn't be, like, Wells Fargo's way of clearing out apartment complexes. That wouldn't have happened. I wonder if Kamala Harris had won, if I and other voices would have been almost pondering if Donald Trump being in office would have caused people to react and stand up against the atrocities of Harris's presidency. Like, I wonder if we would have seen a video of ICE agents raiding some house, raiding some place, and we would have said, wow, if Donald Trump was in office, maybe people would stand up to this. Surely people would stand up if it wasn't a black woman, but was a white rapist man. Would we even have the Epstein files? I mean, they would have been properly redacted because Elon Musk wouldn't have torn through all the contracts, all the Adobe licenses, and just cut off half the staff. 400,000 workers, 400,000 federal workers. That wouldn't have happened. I didn't give the date. It's April 18th, 2026. I wonder how many of our rights the Supreme Court would have rolled back. Well, rights is a bit of a subjective term. I mean, they're privileges, right? The privileges, obviously Kamala Harris, I do believe she would uphold the Constitution for better or worse. I do believe that Kamala Harris would use funding as directed by Congress and wouldn't have done it in a legal war. The question is, would Kamala Harris have just accelerated MAGA? Would Kamala Harris have led to a worse MAGA takeover in 2028? Those are the kind of questions that, you know, I really don't know. And I'm sure I'm going to get flack from people. If anyone even sees this, they'll get flack because how can you not support Kamala? How could you be saying bad things about her? She already lost. I didn't make her lose. Nothing I say is going to change the fact that she lost when Trump took over America. Nothing's going to change that. And I mean, if anyone even sees this video and has a problem with it, you're yelling at someone who's jumping through 2 spikes 1,000,000+ penalty times. Like, you're not really... Nothing you say here is going to actually matter. Nothing I say here is really going to affect anything. And I know that. Sorry to be the depressing, insufferable nihilist, but I mean, you can, if you want to, say something, and I'm not going to complain too much. I'll try to just, like, take it and not really be upset by it. But, like, we all know that nothing I do here really is going to change anything. Nothing you say really is going to change anything. Nothing that I've ever done in my life is really going to change anything. It's just the reality of what this is. Jump, jump. We jump, jump. Shift right, shift left. Should I be more mad at the neoliberal toxic positivity folks? The MAGA chuds, at least I can just write them off as, you know, being MAGA chuds. The neoliberals, to me, are more sinister because I know that this is how rights get eroded. Like, how rights get forgotten. MAGA is how rights get eroded. The neoliberal toxic positivity folks that celebrate 1 step after they lose 5 are how rights get forgotten. Because neoliberals are fundamentally more concerned with feeling good than actually making good. Hell, neoliberals are some of the largest forces behind disappearing people in the United States of America before Donald Trump. The abuses of our medical system, the abuses disappearing homeless people, arresting homeless people off the streets, the kind of like loud proclaiming that there are resources while proceeding to acknowledge or proceeding to ignore the systemic problems. Neoliberals are the reason that California has its care courts. So, I mean, neoliberals are no wonder they're pushing so hard for Newsom. And I think that's what neoliberals want. Is they want to forget, right? They don't want to see things. They want to forget things. So, like, what's going to happen to the people in this nation after this regime? That's just what I have to wonder. Neoliberals, they want to pave over and forget. They want to forgive and forget and move past and put behind. And all the broken people like me, what happens to us? What do? Do we just get shoved off to some corner, and if we make too much noise, we get disappeared? Will neoliberals censor our stories? Will neoliberals censor our history? Will neoliberals brand us as extremists and we call for the executions of the people that tried to kill us? Is that my fate? I mean, this is the real question I have to wonder. Is that what life is going to be for me? Is that what I'm fighting for? To be branded an extremist for simply asking that what was done to me be done to the people that hurt me. I know on the first video, I think I made a point of talking about some extremist figures. Jong-un is the one that I keep on kind of glazing over a little too much. I mean, he's not that great, but he is the closest I've ever been to. If only I had, DM'd him once or twice, maybe things would have gone different for both of us. Maybe I would have been the guy. Maybe I would have been the guy. If you don't know, the person who blew up Park Place, his name is Guy. I think that's really funny. Jong-un in the I Want to Be the Guy community for like a year or two, or maybe he was in it more. I don't know. I know he made one game. I know he made one thing as part of one event and was pretty much shunned by the community in the way that pretty much everyone except for the top people are shunned. But he, it's funny to think of, like, he's in I Want to Be the Guy community, and then he goes on, meets with a guy named Guy, and sacrifices the guy, and blows up Elon Musk's cum. I think that's really funny. I think that is really funny. I think it's really funny. And fuck, I would have liked to be the guy that blows up Elon Musk's cum, although I guess that wouldn't make sense, because my name isn't Guy. I'd have to change my name to Guy. What about that? I double restarted there and then got 10 instead of 5 extra jumps. Oops. I could have changed my name to Guy and blown up Elon Musk's cum. It's close I was ever gonna get to killing Elon Musk. Just kill his future sperm. He saved up a whole month for that. A whole month for that viral. A whole month for that cum. And it's just gone. His penis doesn't work. I shouldn't say that. You shouldn't say that stuff, because at that point, Elon Musk isn't going to care what I say about him here. He's not going to hear this. So I'm just potentially making fun of someone who has an insecurity about their own body. That's not cool. Don't do that. I know that's like a thing that happens a lot especially in anti-Trump and anti-MAGA posts online, is like, and certainly in pro-MAGA posts online too, but they're unapologetic about making fun of types of people. I think sometimes the liberals and leftists make fun of the members of this regime, and they end up, making sweeping insults that hit a lot of people that don't need to be hit. Fuck, I remember, like, people in Hawk podcast comments when he made his videos about the shooter of Charlie Kirk, when it was, you know, believed that he was, well, MAGA was arguing he was trans, liberals were arguing he was a groiper, and this was like when a lot of people first found out about Nick Fuentes, who is a person I really hadn't thought of or even heard about much, so maybe I'm just a fucking shitlib anyway. But Nick Fuentes was like in the news because the shooter of Charlie Kirk allegedly was a groiper. And by the way, the shooter of Charlie Kirk allegedly was in prison when the Discord posts were made that the occasional right-wing podcasts alleges are his confession, and that a couple of news outlets and even the FBI are now saying was his confession, because the US government is fucking incompetent. And I'm not complaining about that, but it's like, guys, I think we just gotta argue that everyone who gets accused of doing some terrorist attack on our side, whether they meant to help us or not, they're wrongly framed. We just gotta push that narrative. Because, like, the FBI is incompetent, and they're just taking random bits out of podcasts that don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And at a certain point, it's like, we gotta just protect our own. I think if more people started getting away with these actions, there'd be more action from people. Because I think the biggest deterrent for why people are not standing up and doing more since Trump got elected, why people haven't done more, is that they fear the repercussions. If we showed, and this might take years to build up this trust, but if we showed that people who do these actions will get acquitted in the end, that yes, you're going to be in jail for 2 years, but we will not put you in prison for 25. You know, free Luigi, free Tyler Robinson. And frankly, I think it would be best if we just started a pro-anarchy movement where it's like anyone who's doing anything to destroy the corporations, even if it's like not ideologically motivated, like the Robin Westmans of the world, like at least they're doing something. We have to at least respect those people. We have to at least, or not respect, we don't have to respect them, but we have to absolve them. You know, go with this mentality. Here's what it is. Go with this mentality. This video now has two completely different topics. I don't know how I'm going to tie it together, but go with this mentality. The United States of America, as a culture, does not have a right to say anyone is immoral. I'm not saying the shooting of these people is morally justified. What I'm saying is that the United States of America does not have the moral authority to put people in prison. I will not support the USA putting anyone in prison. And I think if we were to project that, there are enough good people in the world who fear prison, but would do something if they didn't have the fear of a lifetime in prison, that, yes, you'd have some people that go on to do terrible things, like bombing innocent places, elementary schools, but you'd also have people who are destroying institutions of violence. And if you consider, like, the wider picture, because, like, yes, 20 kids die in a bombing, or maybe like 200 kids die in a bombing, but how many children are going to be sex trafficked by ICE? How many children are going to be killed by cops? How many, you know, if we value all human lives equally, black, white, Hispanic, which I do, how many human lives are going to be lost and how many human lives are going to be saved? And I think the Iranian war has actually provided a bit of like a reference for that mentality. Because yes, the shit going on in Iran is unforgivable. Bombing an elementary school and then coming back 40 minutes later to bomb the survivors and the grievers, and more than anyone else, the rescue team, like that is a war crime, and that is fucking inhumane. You have medical workers treating people who are just bombed, and then they get bombed. It's deliberate. And 40 minutes after, like, you'd have all medical staff on scene. Who is going to take care of the medical staff? Who's going to rescue the rescue teams? That's the mentality behind a 40-minute delay. You're not coming in 5 minutes afterwards and getting the first responders. You're coming in 40 minutes afterwards. You're getting everyone. Now, this has already happened, right? This is the America we live in now, in our world where we say that everyone who does anything violent should be punished, except for the United States of America government, which does the most violence. They get a pass. So, while I do not support the killing of children, important quote to have associated with me, and I'm sure that if anyone gave a fuck, they could find some crazy out of context shit and probably some crazy in context shit. Not that anyone cares who I am, but like, I'm just saying, you know, if I were to one day be a world famous celebrity, you can use these videos and just make some It's not even blackmail, though. But, like, I posted it publicly now. XD. If shit mattered, if I still lived in the world that I thought I lived in 2020, I would be very alarmed to have these quotes associated with me. Good thing that I actually have context and references I can point to why I think the way I do. So that, yeah, you can have your knee-jerk reaction of being like, oh, killing children is bad. Kelvar is a bad person. Kelvar is a dangerous person. But you could also be like, well, killing children is bad, and Kelvar is saying that killing children is bad, and that we shouldn't, you know, we shouldn't be allowing it to happen. But that the solution might be a little harder than just don't kill children, because we have people who really want to kill children and don't give a fuck what you say. So back on I guess it's anarchist. I wouldn't call myself an anarchist in form of like what I want my end government to be. I think when you're in fascism, you have to use every resource you have. And the fact is, there are people who have resources, guns, bombs, ability to make guns and bombs, who know people in power, who have access to people in power, who would never consider doing something violent against those people in power because they fear the repercussions. I don't know if humanity is inherently hateful. If humanity is not inherently hateful, which is the best option at this point, then I believe that having the baseline that we do not prosecute criminals because the law doesn't mean shit and the Constitution isn't being upheld anyways, like the worst offenders aren't being punished, pedophiles, rapists, massive fraudsters that are taking hundreds of thousands of people, taking away their ability to support their family, putting people out on the streets, having children being taken from their homes, having children forced into sex trafficking. The worst offenders are not being punished. Therefore, I don't think that the minor offenders should be punished. I don't think that anyone should be punished unless everyone is held equally under the law. This is not actually a radical point of view, though you definitely would have, if anyone cared what I said, you'd have people saying this is violent ideology. It's not actually radical. This is the entire premise behind how the United States of America used to declare that it worked, right? Everyone has to follow the law, even the president, was what they said. What I grew up hearing in school. Of course, you know, I'm sure many children of color went home to their parents who said, a police officer is going to shoot you and get away with it, so be careful. And, you know, learn that the law applies very differently to black and Hispanic children than it does to white and Asian children. Except during COVID, where Asian people were getting beaten because that was a thing that was happening, because people like Donald Trump pushed the narrative that China was weaponizing COVID, was using COVID as a virus to attack us. And then people believed that conspiracy theory and decided that every Chinese person must be an operative of the Chinese government. Because for some reason, Americans love to generalize everyone except for themselves. And that's liberal and right-wing. They get pissed as fuck when you generalize them. Not my president. And then 2025, Donald Trump isn't our president. In 2029, we're going to rebuild every institution. We are going to take down all of Trump. We're going to restore our relations with our allies. We're going to have peace and harmony. Donald Trump will not define this country. We are more than Donald Trump. Shut the fuck up, liberal. You know as well as we do that none of that shit's going to happen. I mean, you might take down all the Donald Trump signs, but are you going to put up Gavin Newsom ones? ICE is going to do what? Is ICE going to be dismantled, or is ICE going to get body cameras and then Democrats declare ICE is now under control, so when they shoot a black boy, he deserved it. When they traffic a Hispanic person, he deserved it, she deserved it. When they rape a Hispanic woman in a porta potty, this time it was caught on dash cam and body cam instead of being recorded by the offender, so it was a one bad apple, and it was resolved. Oh, it's resolved, but we never get resolution, do we? And that's really the main reason why I think that an anarchist splurge and purge, and anarchists just, I think a lot of grudges would be resolved that are not going to get resolved through the lawful means, even if we had a Democrat supermajority. Like, are you telling me really you think that Democrats are going to prosecute Sam Altman, have him in jail for the rest of his life, seize his assets to repair the damage? No. Are they really going to prosecute Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, or is Elon Musk going to be seen as a federal worker that just did what he was allowed to do, and the American people should vote differently, and so Elon gets to walk away with all his all his money. Like, who's going to hold the Doge Gooners accountable? I actually don't think they deserve death. I know that's a very rational and level-headed position coming from me. I don't think the Doge Gooners deserve death. I do think the Doge Gooners, because of their age, they deserve a second chance, but they have to work for it. I think the Doge Gooners should have thousands of hours of community service. These are 19 through 23-year-olds. I mean, they're basically... They're adults, but given that they were actually very naive, I'm just gonna say the Doge Gooners get an exception from me. I don't know why I have a soft spot for Big Balls, Edward Korstein, given that one of my earlier videos was just me laughing at him, was in large part me laughing at the video of him, or picture of him getting his shit rocked in DC, and then mocking him for it, and then throwing a bunch of insults around at him, and calling him a baby, and saying he didn't actually have the big balls that he named himself after. I don't know why I'm giving smug-ass Big Balls Korstein leniency. And listen, if anyone wants to come into my comments or DM me or something and be like, I don't think that you should give them leniency, please have that conversation with me, because I'm actually just going to completely drop my whole, like, moderate persona, and I will absolutely harp on these folks. They look like a bunch of fucking morons, and they stole our social security information, leaked all of our private data, caused hundreds of millions of dollars worth of damages that I know are never going to get fixed, and destroyed all privacy beyond what the Enron scandal did. Enron. I want to pin that for a moment. I want to peg that. I want to peg that like a Republican... You know, okay, I shouldn't. There's nothing wrong with liking getting pegged. There's a lot wrong with being a Republican. I shouldn't be conflating the two. Enron, right? Did the Enron people actually get held accountable? No. What happened to the people who were victims of that scandal, who had to freeze their credit? They had to pay to unfreeze their credit. The victims had to pay. That's how it always is. Big companies fuck up, and then they get a minor fine, which isn't even given to the victims, and it's not enough compensation, and the victims end up having to pay in the end. Yeah, you get, you know, maybe you get a surface level judgment, but what difference does it make to the people harmed? Can it be called reparations if it doesn't mend the harmed? Can we really consider any of these issues settled when the people wronged bear the burden of the wronging? This whole country does not know how to rectify wrongs, and so of course Silicon Valley, with their move fast and break things mentality, just steamrolls through every resolution, every barrier. And this is bigger than just Enron. And again, this is why I think let the people have their resolution. Let the people have their retribution. Did someone who got abducted by a hospital? Did someone abducted by a hospital have a lifelong grudge against that place and want to burn it down? Let them, because there's no just resolution that's going to happen. All the people that get trafficked every single day, and they're never going to see any sort of retribution, resolution, reparations, repair. And America has become numb to this. Like, you couldn't even run a political platform on fixing these issues because no one really thinks about them until they happen to you. Or you hear from someone the heart-wrenching stories of people who it's happened to. Like the hundreds of thousands of people that get trafficked by ICE. Even if they're alive, right? Do you think Democrats are going to work to bring them back? Do you think Democrats are going to work to compensate them for all of the lost productivity, lost family time? How do you even make that back to someone? Sorry, our government trafficked you. I mean, the Japanese Americans trafficked under President FDR. They didn't ever get their resolution. They never got their retribution. They got released, and they came back to raided, broken apartments, spray painted with slurs. Did the government pay to remove those slurs? No. Some communities might have removed those slurs, but I think for the most part it was them paying. It was if they even wanted to live in the same neighborhood. Who was it erasing all the slurs, the anti-Japanese American slurs off of these homes? Who was it that gave them back the money and for their stolen belongings? No one. No one did. They never got that back. What about all the lost productivity? They were in concentration camps for years. They lost jobs, they lost promotions, they lost positions. Now they're behind on the corporate ladder after working their whole life to get up to where they were before being abducted. And when do they get their retribution? When do they get their resolution? Never. Look at how this country treats black people that are wrongly imprisoned. So yeah, if a black man put in jail for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months for a bullshit murder charge they didn't do, if they want to go back and mow down that jail, I think we let them. Who the hell are we to say that's wrong? I mean, it's wrong. Yes, it's wrong. It's wrong. Who the hell are we to say they shouldn't do it? You have someone who gets abducted, brutalized, beaten. And should they not get their revenge? And frankly, I think every trans person and every neurodiverse youth should have the opportunity to just shoot their parents. Like, you should be given a free ability. This is personal. This is my single issue vote. No, it's not my single issue voter, but let me shoot the fuck out of my parents. Dumbasses. Not that they have any money for me to inherit anyways, because they sunk it all on Hawk Tuah coin. Hawk Tuah coin. Fucking idiots. That is actually Trump coin. Probably. All their money in crypto. Oh, they're all like, oh, my children abandoned me. Oh, I lost my money. I shouldn't pay attention to them, right? Now I'm just on a personal tangent. Venting. I shouldn't be doing that. Okay, sorry. So pretend I didn't do any of that. Pretend I didn't say any of that. And that's what upsets me most about this country. Is that there never is a resolution, right? It's just stacked on top of stacked on top of stacked pain. Pain on top of pain on top of pain, and it just never ends. There's every single year of my life, and I'll keep this reserved to the politics side of it, although isn't it all one and the same? Every year, it's just more pressure, more agony, more stress, and it keeps stacking on. And it's not just prices, but it is prices. It's not just the federal policy, but it is the federal policy. And, you know, so much of my earlier naivety was I mean, it was just naivety. My earlier innocence was just naivety. Because the more I try to gain perspective, the worse this nation looks. At this point, I cannot see a future for America. I cannot see a future for this nation that doesn't involve, at some point, having people come in and just be given a free-for-all or a very, very lenient tribunal. You know, in Nuremberg. But it needs to go further than just the officials of the Trump regime. Hospitals that abducted people need to be held accountable to each of their victims. Prisons and jails need to be held accountable. We need to understand that we need to feel worse about more of these actions. Murder, abduction, sex trafficking, sexual abuse, rape, these are all so normalized in our daily discussion that you cannot capture the magnitude of being the victim of them, and so they just become headlines. It's like, oh yeah, this person's child was abducted from them. The walk the dog case. And I'll pull that one up after this attempt, after I die to a gate jump. Cool. Alright, I'm just going to skim read this one right here. I just found out that in October of 2025, this was actually reversed. There is a documentary about this. A family had their child taken away because of, and I talked about a similar case in the last video. I don't know why I'm just becoming like the hospital abuse article reader, because there's a lot more wrong with this country than just the hospitals, but the hospitals are a part of it, and I think they get away because the Democrats and Republicans alike both side with them. And yes, the mother committed suicide here. And it started as with the previous case that I talked about, where they had to do an escape a rescue mission on their daughter. This one started with typical hospital visit, and for some reason, her mother wanted Maya to get pain medicine. For some reason, they chose not to give her pain medicine, and they, for some reason, thought the mother was not capable, or they didn't like the mother's tone probably, and Maya wasn't allowed to see her. Maya's mom wasn't allowed to see her mom, so they're not even given unsupervised visits between the rest of the family. Ridiculous. And her mom committed suicide. Meanwhile, Maya was actually being abused by the actual nurses, which I mean is like typical from what I've heard. I don't like the medical industry in this country. I don't think any part of it is okay. The real thing that we should have in this country, the real thing we need actual restrictions so that this shit can't happen. I mean, I cannot believe that we have these kind of power dynamics going on. Because yes, this is a private hospital, but they're using as leverage aspects of the government, aspects supported by the government. And that leverage of the government system by a private organization should not be able to happen. Walmart does this when arresting people who get accused of shoplifting because the self-checkout checks them out wrong. Walmart uses the same thing. They're threatening to use the police. Why are if private corporations are threatening to use services and are using government services, I think the government should be held accountable to that. I think the government needs to change so that they will not follow through on these steps. They will not actually arrest people. And in this case, the parents didn't actually check her out against medical advice, so they didn't see whether the hospital officials were going to take out handcuffs themselves, or the hospital officials were going to call officers to threaten. We never got to actually see what actually happened, and that is legally significant. Because on one end, anyone can threaten anything. I can threaten that I'll call the cops on you if you kill me in a video game. The question is, will the cops show up if I call them? And in the real world, yes, they will. If you swatting is a problem that needs to be handled by the government. If swatting wasn't a thing, obviously it isn't the government's fault that I'm making those kind of threats. And so likewise, hospital staff could say whatever the fuck they want, and you would, if they were just bluffing, you would take that up with the hospital board. The problem is, as we've seen time and time again, hospitals, Walmart, whatever private corporations, Wells Fargo, doing their raid of that, it was Colorado, right? The Colorado apartment building, fucking insane shit. All of these different groups are using the government to destroy us. And that's the thing. It's not just the government. It's not just the private corporations. It's the techno-fascist, military, industrial, medical, slavery complex, and you could add more to that. Corporations use the politicians, and they form up this pseudo-nation, which is just a bunch of violence. It's just a camp filled with violence. That's all it is. People will be like, people will argue that, well, you shouldn't use the term slavery, you shouldn't use the term neo-slavery, wage slavery, whatever. I see a lot of violence. I see a lot of violence in this world. I'm not going to argue the specifics. I just wish there wasn't so much violence. I wish there wasn't so much violence, but I know that the Constitution will not provide that resolution. Because look, was there any significant change made to how officers, how the medical system works after this case? No. After the case that I talked about in the previous video, where they did an escape, they did a whole escape plot for their own daughter? No. All the voices speaking against the troubled teen industry, all the voices pointing out the ICE atrocities, and El Paso was still terrorized under Joe Biden. It's not a Democrat or Republican thing. It's something else. And I really don't believe there's enough people that want it changed. And I don't know I don't know what we do. I do not know what we do. Oops. I wouldn't say this is a news channel. I don't really know what this is. It's a journal, I guess, of sorts. A way to document the life of this chaos and pain. But for me, my focus has never been on the ongoing events. I mean, I think everything about what's going on now, in June of last year, it already hit its worst. Well, no, I think ICE agents shooting a civilian was probably the shock point. But didn't they kill like 34 civilians before that point? It was Good and then Peretti were caught on camera and were white. I think that's the only reason why people cared about that. I remember seeing officers rough handle attack a black man who was a citizen at a random store they raided. I don't think there's much of a point in covering like the ongoing events. Like, we already saw what this country would let happen. If you didn't come to the conclusion that our institutions aren't going to save us, if you didn't come to that conclusion in June of 2025, to put out an estimate, I don't know. I don't know what it would really take at that point. Which, I'll go back to this idea of an anarchist raid. At this point, nothing that the people of this country would do would be worse than what the government of this country has done. So I really wish, and I know this isn't really going to happen, but I wish there was some way to just clearly communicate and have a unanimous agreement from the people that we just don't prosecute anyone. They need the jury buy-in? Not going to happen. They need a grand jury to indict? No. Not for acts against ICE agents, but also not for acts against local businesses, against warehouses, whatever it may be. Because in the end, all of these different sources trickle down into the one big, disgusting picture. There's one machine at the core of this country, and anything that happens within this country that hurts people hurts the machine. This is one of those views that people don't want to accept and they don't want to be associated with, but it is, I see it as the truth. I do not believe that, I don't believe that there's anything objectively wrong with it. It sounds bad, because then you hear about people who shoot up concert venues and kill children. And that doesn't seem good on the surface, but you have to look beyond the surface level reaction. Because none of this is good on the surface. Everything's going to shit. I mean, you have elementary schools and orphanages being bombed in Iran. So yeah, I'd like to see violence strike American streets. And I think if we had people go mask off, I think the vast majority of people in this country would not shoot up an elementary school. If we said we were going to do everything we can to impede all law enforcement across the board, I think you'd see Facebook burning down, OpenAI burning down, you'd see the government buildings burning down, you'd see government politicians killed, probably some Democrats that are, on the better end, but a lot of people on the bad end. Republicans. Maybe someone would push Chuck Schumer down the stairs. And in the end of the day, I don't care if the man who kills Chuck Schumer is a leftist environmentalist or an anti-Semite. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the end. If they did it because they hate his policy or they did it because they hate Jewish people, guess who isn't such a Senate minority leader anymore? Chuck Schumer isn't. If the guy who kills Hakeem Jeffries or Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, whether he's a neo-Nazi skinhead or a socialist, communist, revolutionary, the guy is not heading the Democrats. And at the end of the day, when the high school churns out 200 students at the end of a year, 200 of its senior class, into universities, supporting this whole interconnected, fucked up network, those people, If you stop the 200 students from getting out of high school, it stops the universities from getting their students. But think bigger picture. Think bigger picture for a second. If you had a world where people were afraid to go to work, well, you don't know, they wouldn't. They're already afraid not to go to work, so that wouldn't do anything. Fuck, you know, it would stop some people, but, like, you'd also have people getting blown up on the way to work, hating every day of their life. I don't know. The people have got to at some point say, fuck this, I'm not doing this anymore, and snap. And, I mean, it's gonna be the poorest that end up dying doing that. That sucks. It sucks. I didn't vote for Donald Trump. I voted for Kamala Harris. I didn't vote for the Green Party or the Libertarian Party because I knew they wouldn't win, and I know they could win if everyone were to vote for them, but I knew that wasn't gonna happen. It sucks. All of this sucks. Every part about this sucks. We're talking about killing hundreds of thousands of people, and hundreds of thousands of people dying, and millions of people getting life-saving supplies taken away, and millions of people dying of preventable diseases, and all of this sucks. It all sucks. I don't think this should continue on for another 2.5 years. I never thought that we should wait till the midterms. I never said that we should wait till the midterms. I have never said that. I have repeatedly, incessantly, to an excessive degree, said that we should do something first. We should unite, have a general strike. I don't fucking know. You guys gotta do it. I am disabled. I cannot be your working class hero. I cannot be your Luigi. I can be your cheerleader. And I can be your spokesperson. And I can be your keyboard warrior. I cannot be your revolutionary because I can barely make it through the day most days, okay? That's what it is. I dissociate 15 times a day. I'm sorry I can't be your next Luigi. I'm sorry I can't put my life where my mouth is. Because I can solve this game theory, but I can't make it happen. I hate all of this. I hate all of this. I hate the whole picture. I hate the fact that I'm even here in a room, jumping back and forth over a gate jump while thinking, geez, you know, we need to start, like, is it a genuinely good idea to have people just start randomly shooting other people? Would that actually be more productive than what Americans are getting up to? Probably, and I hate that fact. I hate that because it sounds like shit, and this isn't who I want to be, and this isn't how I want to talk. But you know what? This is the world we live in. This is it. This is the era that we are in. And I mean, some people can smug apathetically and be like, hey, America sucks. And other people can, you know, get their million-person peaceful marches with pre-approved slogans and be all like, we're gonna save America. America is good. America is better than Trump. We just have to get this man out of office and we're gonna fix everything. Trump is a symptom. He's not the problem. And y'all, if you 25th him out, Vance takes charge. And if you 25th him out, which I don't think you could do, then what? Hegseth, the Secretary of Agriculture, like RFK, who do you want to take charge? It's going to be someone from this regime. Yes, it sucks. We cannot let this continue on. The world cannot take another 2.5 years of this shit. And yeah, people are going to die. People have already died. People call me extreme and call other voices like me extreme because in 2025, we were all like, you got to start doing shit. We got to more Luigis. And you know, you can call us reactionaries or revolutionaries or whatever other political terms you want to throw on, whether you know what they mean or not. But people have died. People have died. Hundreds of thousands of people have died. And I mean, I cannot believe the same nation where we were all saying like, if the Nazis take charge, I would have raided the camp, are now here like, we have to wait till the midterms and let us vote out these Republicans. Hundreds of thousands of people are dying. Hundreds of thousands of people are dying every single month. We are letting more people die. You've got concentration camps. You have people being deported into the ocean. You have people being sent to camps where it's openly declared that they will never get out. Where they have mountains of gore. Like, what the fuck is happening? I think everyone is so, and including me, are so overwhelmed that we are all coming up with excuses why we shouldn't have to do anything. And we're all just repeating the same loops on loop over and over again because we don't know how to handle this, because I don't think the human brain can handle this. I think it is impossible. We can look at textbooks and say the people should have done this. That's the game theory, right? We can solve the game theory, but you can't do it when you're in it. When every single question that you have to ask is underlined, has the underlying understanding that you have to be one of the people sacrificed. It's a different shenanigan. It's a different scene. And that's why you don't have more working class heroes, because people don't want to be in jail for 5 years, 15 years, 25 years, the rest of their life. And you don't have more revolutionaries because people are afraid. And some people are brave. Like there's a raid of an ice camp by leftists in Texas. Heroes they are. And of course you have Luigi Mangione, you have Tyler Robinson, you have people who did their part. Someone attempted to shoot Donald Trump. Unsuccessful, but successful in showing that people care. The problem is I've just talked about what is, the head count for those all combined makes up like 20 people. You have the man who burned down the warehouse, the toilet paper warehouse. He's, the leftist California Luigi, 21. And you got a couple of other people who've killed their bosses. And all in all, we're talking about less than 1 for every 100 million in this country. Definitely less than 1 for every 100 million in the world. I don't know. I don't have a good answer. There's no clean answer. I can tell you that. There is no clean answer I would have found out at this point. Someone would have found out at this point. There is no clean answer. Vote for the midterms is not a clean answer because even in the best scenario where Democrats take charge, you have legitimized that this can happen. If we wait for the midterms, we have legitimized as a population that you can have tyranny for at least 2 years, and it's up to the people, not our systems, to stop it. The answer cannot be to vote. It cannot be a peaceful answer. We cannot answer with peace to violence because then we legitimize violence. I can tell you that much. I'm out of things to say on this. I've poured my heart out. I hope it means something to someone. If it does, leave a comment. If it doesn't, if you hate me, leave a comment of that too. Give me something to mope over in bed. I don't know. Have a good day, everyone, or don't, because the world is shit and everything's burning down, and I hate everyone, except for the people that actually see it too. I don't hate them. I don't know. I don't hate you. I love you. All right, then, and I'm out of shit to say.